Wait.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Week 2. Guys, we made it. We didn't get fired. We're still on the air. That's a success story, I think. This is m&M&M across the board. Eric McDowell, Sean Martin, who, as you can see, he loves hockey so much, he's in the penalty box because our producers weren't able to censor out that naughty word that he said on YouTube. So he's not allowed to talk for the first minute, but we'll take care of that. M&M&M across the board. You can find us on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, and of course, Twitter. Our Twitter handle is at m&m&m@atb1. That's m&m&m across the board 1. We're so happy that you came back to be with us. Nice to be here. We'll do quick introductions again in case you missed us the first week. Sean Martin, freelance sports writer for the Albany Times-Union and author of Dear Liam and Noah, Letters from Daddy, which can be found on Amazon. But again, he's in timeout. Liam and Noah can learn very good lessons from Daddy. Timeout when you say bad words, Daddy. Eric McDowell has worked in collegiate and professional sports communications, including NCAA schools at all 3 levels, as well as the NBA. And I am Ashley Miller. I am a sports anchor and reporter at WNYT News Channel 13, the NBC affiliate here in Albany, New York. We've got 3 topics among many other things that we're going to hit today. Excuse me. MLB trade deadline deals. Who won? Who lost? Mr. McDowell is going to handle that. The NFL Hall of Fame class, as well as Hall of Fame snubs, which will be Mr. Sean Martin. And I'll take on Simone Biles. And that's where we're going to start. Guys, what's up? How are you?
Doing well, Ashley. How are you?
Good. Very good.
Ready to see you, folks. Good to see you. And I hope that we don't see any rain pretty soon as our M&M&M set is under construction.
You're under construction. You're outdoors today. You're looking good.
Thank you.
I love it. Well, guys, we talked about Simone Biles off camera last week, and it had just happened. And I said a few things to you guys and was like, I don't know if I wasn't sure where to stand, to be honest with you. And now that we've had, 4 or 5 days to digest and things have transpired, my mind has changed a little bit. And this is what I love about sports. And this is what I love about this platform is that we're kind of free to say where we stand. And when this first happened and Simone Biles said, you know what, I'm going to bow out of the team all around, my initial reaction was like, whoa. Like, you're the best gymnast out there. Their best chance is with you. But thinking about it, if you're going to get deducted points for stepping out of bounds and your vault isn't going to go like you should, honestly, I guess she's not their best chance. If she's not 100% Simone Biles, there are plenty of other talented people on that team that took her place and showed that, these women got opportunities when Simone bowed out and they took advantage of that. And they're coming home with a haul of medals. The biggest thing I think I learned from this whole situation, and this is me not knowing a ton about the sport of gymnastics, but having talked to people in the sport of gymnastics, and you guys hear the word twisties used?
Yes.
Yeah, throughout this. So twisties. And I equated this to the yips, which I think, the casual sports fan would understand and baseball sports fans would understand. The yips is like in baseball, when Chuck Knobloch couldn't throw the ball to first base, he had the yips. It's just a thing. It's a disconnect. And this is how Simone described the twisties. It's a disconnect between the mind and the body. You get in the air. You're not sure where you are, which way's up, which way's down. And I totally understand how that could be, first of all, very scary, but also very dangerous. Like, this is not a woman standing on a baseball field throwing a baseball to the first baseman. This is a woman who is 5 to 10 feet in the air off the ground and is now putting her body at risk. So I'd love to know where you guys stand on it and if maybe your mind has changed like mine has.
Yeah, same thing when it first happened. It's like, wow, if you didn't want to compete individually, I understand that. It's a teamwork thing, and the team was counting on the greatest gymnast in the world, maybe of all time, and she dropped out. But you take some time, you reflect, you soak it in, and you research. Yeah, I'd never heard of the word twisties until this past week either. And the yips, you think of Steve Blass back in the 70s for the Pirates, a pitcher. He had to retire. He couldn't throw strikes. You don't want to kill somebody in the box. I think for her, and I'm happy to see she's coming back for the balance beam. I think the thing that people forget is mental health is a very difficult thing. And I can speak from experience on that. I had mental health issues in my 20s and 30s. I got counseling and I was able to work my way through it. But you got to really think about it. In gymnastics, yes, you have world championships. You have different competitions each year. But gymnastics is like many sports. It's all about the Olympics. Okay. So for her to drop out, that tells me that it must have been severe enough. And I heard the same analogy. You don't know where you are in the air. You're talking about exposing yourself to potentially horrific injury, and hurting your team. And also, she stepped back, and other athletes for the U.S. team was able to go compete and medal. And so I think whether you like it or not, you know what, if you want to criticize Simone Biles, go ahead. I would just suggest take a step back and look in the mirror, because you don't know what's going on with her head. And it's very difficult to make a judgment like that. You have to take a look at the athlete and say, you know what, she did what she thought was best, and hopefully she'll be better for it.
In 2016, folks, she was 19 years old, and that is considered the peak age of a gymnast. Think about that, 19. In pro sports, usually it's around 27, 28. And when she won the gold, her thought was, I've won the gold, what else is there? Look at what she's accomplished. And now, of course, it's much different than many years ago because of NBC, the marketing, the magazines, the pressure, all of that is there. Now, I am not 19, I'm much older, but if I have pressure, I really take it inside. Now you're talking about somebody who is late early 20s who has done so much and could easily just say, I don't need to go anymore. I've done it all. But actually, I think it's a good point about gymnastics. This is a unique sport, and I'll say why. And I don't want to talk about Larry Nassar. Please no. But what I do want to stress to people is that any young woman at that age has so much going on. And for gymnastics, they are trained so early, and it is work to them. It's a sport, but it's work, and they expect perfection. And I speak from the heart because I had met Carrie Scruggs. If you recall the pictures of her playing in agony, it was horrific what Bella Neroli and those people did to her to force her to push through a very serious injury. In this case, it's not physical as much as mental. But it's difficult, and we have to respect her. I respect any gymnast, any young lady who does so much at such a young age. And now in the world of expectations, we have to put ourselves not in her shoes, but in context. And I think gymnastics now can be very proud of what she's accomplished and her teammates stepping up. But let's remember what she's done at such a young age, and all of those before her, and those young girls like mine that look up to her and are proud of her. We're all proud of her.
Yeah, I agree. And Eric, you said it, and I think, Sean, you said it as well. This is a woman who is not only the best gymnast in the world right now, she's quite possibly the best gymnast to ever walk the face of this planet. And she still has time to compete. So if she can get this thing right, and we hope that she can get this right so that we can see her compete on the balance beam tomorrow, it would be, what a comeback story that would be. She walks off the floor, her team still wins a silver medal. And then what her teammates have done have been absolutely incredible. We saw Suni Lee win gold after Biles dropped out. What a moment for her, and what a chance for her to then be introduced to the entire world. Because listen, the gymnastics community knows about these girls, but we don't know about these girls. The casual fan doesn't know about these women until they then hit this Olympic stage and have their moment to shine. We've got Michaela Skinner, who won silver on the vault. We've got Suni Lee, who then also won bronze on the uneven bars. And we had Jade Carey with a jaw-dropping performance this morning, if you haven't seen it yet, on the floor, and she wins gold. These are all opportunities that a lot of these women would not have had, unfortunately, had Simone Biles been in this competition. So it's offered a ton of opportunity for other women who are very, very worthy. And Jade Carey, she tripped in her vault and finished in 8th place a day ago. Comes back this morning on the floor and just absolutely crushes it. That is the Olympic spirit. That's what we love to see.
Yeah, and I think I want to go back to the mental health component of it again, because a lot of people, if you don't research it and you've never lived it, it's difficult to understand. In sports, they'll give you an analogy that there's a difference between being hurt and being injured. Okay, being hurt, you can push through it, playoff time for your team, you get out there and play. But mental health is something that's kind of new, just in the last few years to society, and people get you. If you don't understand it, that's okay. Do some research. Study up on it. Listen to some of the experts. Listen to people in gymnastics that'll tell you just how bad the twisties are. And that's kind of when I started to think, okay, you know what? It must have been really bad for her to drop out. And again, people will say, well, she wasn't a team player because she quit on her team. No, she didn't quit on her team. She was a team player because she did what was best for the team while also doing what's best for herself.
And she didn't let her team down by not competing at 50%, Sean. And that's a key as well. That's what I think we're all agreeing with, is that she could go out there because of who she is and have an obligation. But if she is not 100% or even 80%, she knows she's not going to be effective. And anything less than 110%, sorry, Yogi Berra, with her is a letdown of people. So I don't think she let down her team at all. You look at all the accomplishments they actually talked about because they stepped up, and she felt she would hurt the team by being, 50% or so. So whether it's physical or mental, athletes, and I consider them pros. I know they're not professional in gymnastics, but they really are pros as people and as athletes. They have expectations of themselves that we can never even imagine. Okay? Can't imagine it. A yip to me is in my league missing a 3-foot putt. That's my yip. But I can't imagine at this stage and with these expectations what goes through their heads at such a very young age. It really is remarkable, but she did not let her team down. She indeed did what she felt was right, and her team really stepped up. It's a great story, Ashley. It really is. You're right.
Yeah, and I think we talk about letting her team down. Listen, she walked off the floor. She got checked out. She was back on the floor, and there was no bigger fan in the building than Simone Biles cheering on her team to silver. And I love her social media presence. I love everything about how she handled it, because not only was she grinning ear to ear and celebrating, but on all of her social media platforms, she went out there and she said, this is a win. This is a win for my team. We came home with silver. Like, forget the notion that it's, oh, we lost gold and took home silver. No, how about we be happy? And I understand USA Gymnastics is a dynasty. I get it. But how about we be happy for the achievements of, like, maybe overachieving without Simone Biles? Do we ever think of it as like, well, guess what? They won silver, and that was without Simone Biles. Imagine what they would have done with her. So, like, for her to be happy and supportive on social media and so positive and just, like, energetic about her teammates' success, I think tells you everything you need to know about her as a person, number one. And I am glad that there's a whole generation of young girls and maybe hopefully young boys who look after her and just think of her as a role model, because she does it all the right way, which you don't see that very often.
Yeah, and you go back to the team concept. One of the things that struck me over the weekend watching the swimming, big fan of the swimming, Caleb Dressel, dominant in the pool as an individual. Nobody was more excited to him when the 4x medley relay won gold the other day. And that just goes part of being Team USA swimming, part of that relay. And that's what's so great about the Olympics. Even you've seen athletes get beaten and they go over and congratulate somebody from another country. That's what the Olympics are about. You know what? I want Team USA to win gold in every single event, right? Okay, but that's just not how it is. That's not how athletics are. Celebrate those achievements. And there's also there's other stories that you don't hear about. Some of this overcome great odds just to make the Olympic Games. Doesn't matter if they finish in 8th, 5th, whatever. So there's a lot more to it than just winning. Winning is not the end all be all. I can't say that I felt that way my entire life, but that's where I'm at right now. And that's one of the things I'm really enjoying about these Olympics.
That's the culture of the United States, I believe, in professional sports. And other than horse racing, if you finish second or third, it's like you lost. Everybody talks about a win, and a loss is devastating, and a tie is like meh, that little thing that just goes meh, okay? There's nothing wrong with a silver or a bronze. Are you kidding me? This is around the world. They have just the fact that they're there is a remarkable accomplishment. I love the cameras where they go back to the hometown. They see the tears, the emotions, the parents, and everything they invested, not financially, invested from here into their daughter or their son to see them get a bronze or a silver. That is an accomplishment. And as I said, win is great, place or show are fine too in horse racing, but the fact is every 4 years is when we realize that it's not just about winning, it's about competing and the sacrifices that you and your family makes.
Those hometown cameras are so good. They're so good. The Lydia Jacoby in her hometown or in her home state of Alaska going, just absolutely berserk when she won gold. I watched a video the other day too. Detroit Lions backup quarterback. His wife is running for Columbia in the Olympics. And there was a video of him in one of their tape rooms. Like he was watching on a big projector. He had teammates around him. And he was just going bananas it was one of her heats, and she qualified to advance. Like that stuff, it makes you just feel like warm and good inside. And we don't know these people, but those are the moments. And one of the other moments I wanted to bring up too, this was one of my favorite moments in the Olympics, and I wish we could show it. The high jump. Did you guys see the high jump video? Yes. Two guys ended up tied. Chills. It gives you chills. Exactly. Two guys ended up tied. Now you can do a jump off to decide gold and silver, but there was a camera in there with the official talking to both of these athletes. One was from Italy and one was from Qatar. Both of these athletes have said, you can do a jump off. And then you hear the athlete from Qatar say, can we just both have gold? And the guy was like, yeah. And they hugged and just went absolutely crazy. I mean, tears, went and see their family. Like those people would rather share the gold than say, you know what, I want to fight it out so that someone wins, and someone loses. They didn't want to then feel like they lost and get silver. They both wanted to take home the gold, and they were happy to share it.
I'd have fought it out. Contradicting I just said about winning not being everything. I think in that spot, go for it. Even go one or two more rounds and go for it. That's just me though.
I think if you had a fan, like a stadium full of fans, maybe you would feel the pressure to, want to do a jump off so that you have a winner and a loser. But at the same time, if all those fans were privy to what we were privy to afterwards and just that whole conversation and that, that whole moment, I think at the end of the day, you can feel good about how that all went down. And like, listen, I hate the idea of like sharing state championships. Nobody wants to do that. But like, for some reason, the idea of sharing a gold medal to me just seems like different and pure.
Right.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. It is what it is at the end of the day. It's like the college football playoffs when they used to have split champions. So that's fine.
All right. So we root for Simone tomorrow. We hope that she wins gold in what will be her only real event, the only event that she competes in individually on the balance beam. And then we see where she goes from here. Guys, we think, like you said, 19 is like prime gymnastics age. They call her the OG, and not from the like classic, what we know of as the OG. They call her Olympics grandma. Like Simone Biles is not old. She was born in 1997. She's not old, but the careers of gymnasts are much more limited and they end a lot earlier. So we hope for her sake that we get to see her again in Paris in 2024, which would be awesome. But if we don't, let's hope we see her standing atop a podium with a gold medal around her neck.
Let's hope so. And once again, folks, you can follow us on Twitter at m&m&m&atb1 and find our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Our weekly show here with Ashley and Eric and myself, the 3 M's, M cubed across the board. Later on this week, the NFL is going to be inducting actually 2 classes this year, but the 2021 class, Alan Faneca, great guard for the Steelers, Coach Tom Flores from the Raiders, other way, yeah. Calvin Johnson, Megatron, John Lynch, great defensive back, safety with Tampa Bay, helped ruin Super Bowl 18 for me. Peyton Manning, and the Omaha chant. We'll see if he gets up there and cause an audible up there. Bill Nunn, Drew Pearson, long overdue for him, Dallas Cowboy receiver from the 70s, and the great Charles Woodson, near and dear to my heart as well. But every time we get to Hall of Fame time, I always think about the snubs. Who's not there and who should? Now, everybody can't be in. So the way I look at Hall of Fame is if someone asks me, is so-and-so a Hall of Famer? If I can't answer yes or no inside of 5 seconds, then they're probably not. You can dig deeper into statistics and whatnot. That's how I am. I'm curious how the two of you are. I'll get to some of my snubs.
I love that rule.
Yeah.
It's true. It really is. Ash, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that's the perfect way to put what every Hall of Fame would be. And listen, I have some problems with the NFL Hall of Fame. I think they let in too many players. I think Major League Baseball Hall of Fame has it right and that others should kind of sway that way. But I agree that should be like the quintessential. If you have to think about it for more than 5 seconds, or if you have to be like, well, remind me of their stats and how long they played, or what was their passing, what was their all-time passing yards, their greatest season? Did they win MVPs? Did they make Pro Bowls? If you have to think about that and you don't already know, like, were they good enough? Then the answer should be no.
All right, I'm going to mention, Sean, I've got 3 guys, and I'm really curious what you folks think. I have a feeling you're going to do this the minute the name is mentioned. Anquan Boldin.
No.
I love it.
Okay, I'll ask you why. To me, 13,779 receiving yards, 82 TDs, incredible career. He made just 3 Pro Bowls because, like you see in baseball, that there's certain times where there's a lot of quality talent at one time, but he holds the rookie record, 101 catches, 217 yards in a game, fastest to reach both 400 and 500 catches. I think Anquan Boldin is on the cusp. Sean, you don't think so?
I think the problem with wide receivers now is the game has changed so much in the last 10, 15, 20 years. There's a backlog. Like Torrey Holt is not in the Hall of Fame yet. Drew Pearson just getting in from the 70s. I'm a homer, but Cliff Branch belongs in the Hall of Fame, and you're going to hear his name. You read top players not in. Cliff Branch is prominently mentioned up top. He was the premier deep threat in the NFL for almost 15 years, 2-time Super Bowl winner. But look at going back here is Jim Marshall, part of the Purple People Eaters with the Vikings. Roger Craig, a big part of what San Francisco did for years. Sterling Sharp, another wide receiver. And going back to my Raiders, Lester Hayes, Defensive Player of the Year in 1980, and had a great career. Those are just some of the ones I look at. But here's I want to challenge you two with this. And this will be a heated debate in the area that we are in. But Eli Manning, Hall of Fame, yes or no?
Yes, first ballot.
Here's my issue with Eli.
I understand all the reasons why no, but I also understand all the reasons why yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. Jim Plunkett.
No for me.
No, also. Okay. And
Jim
I'm a Pats guy, as you know, but
are there numbers the same? I was going to say, I'm interested to see what you're getting at here.
Well,
keep going.
Here's the thing with the numbers. They're difficult to compare. Plunkett played in the 70s and through the mid 80s. Eli played in a much bigger, higher volume passing, so it's hard to compare their passing stats. Career record, regular season, Eli, 117 wins and 117 losses. Plunkett, 72 and 72, but his 8 years with the Raiders, 38 and 19. And 2-time Super Bowl champion for Plunkett, 2-time Super Bowl champion for Eli. So I always like to talk to Giants fans about Eli. They love him. And look, the guy had an unbelievable postseason. Some great clutch throws that probably keep Eric up at night being a Pats fan and all that, but they live in NFL history. But that's what I'm saying. So it's all subjective, okay? So he won 2 Super Bowls, so Jim Plunkett. So that's why I bring up that comparison with Eli and Plunkett. Now Plunkett, he got his backside handed to him in New England, okay?
I was going to say that, yes.
Yeah, was that all on him? Maybe. Overall, number 1 overall pick in the draft back in his day. So you look at the comparisons, there's a lot of things that are very interesting there, and that's what makes the Hall of Fame debate so interesting is it's all subjective. And what's a great stat to me is not to somebody else. And you think about the NFL, the way they do it, the people go in and they have somebody present them to the voters and they argue. And I just get a vision of British Parliament going back and forth and going crazy.
Jim Plunkett is punished by the fact that he spent most of his career in New England looking up at the sky, okay? Other than John Hanna, he had zero protection. He had virtually zero weapons, maybe James or something. But I think Plunkett's Hall of Fame case goes back to he's being punished by the lack of talent around him, and you just proved it by his great record with the Raiders. So you take that away, look at his record, and you can't blame him. It's like blaming a pitcher for a lousy baseball team and a win-loss record. But Plunkett, a great career. I just don't think he's there. But as one of the best Raiders, I would agree. I think he's there in that respect. But he is punished by the lack of talent. And the same could be said for Eli Manning over the years for the lack of talent that he had around him compared to the talent that you see that was around Brady and around Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, listen, and we all know that defense that Eli had was the reason that they got to that Super Bowl. when David Tyree pinned a ball against his helmet. But when you're talking about anyone who has any quarterback that has more than one Super Bowl win, so you have two of them, and you have two Super Bowl MVPs, you are in the Hall of Fame. It's not like you accidentally got to the Super Bowl and the defense scored all your points. You got to the Super Bowl and somebody that wasn't me thought you deserved the MVP. When that is like your shining credentials, I don't care if you threw the most interceptions in the history of the NFL in the regular season. You went to two Super Bowls, you won two Super Bowl MVPs, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Well, that's the key word in it, the Hall of Fame, right? What's famous? You don't have to be a top 10 all-time passer. When I'll go back to Jim Plunkett, 1980, he was on the scrap heap. Dan Pastorini was the Raider quarterback that year. He broke his leg a few games in, and Plunkett came off the bench and resurrected that career. And he was the leader of that team for sure. The first ever wild card team to win a Super Bowl, part of the ice game, Red Right 88 in Cleveland. Sorry, Browns fans. And then a big win on the road against the San Diego team with Dan Fouts and John Jefferson and Wes Chandler and Kellen Winslow. So Plunkett was a great story back then. And he was a Super Bowl MVP as well.
There are teams, actually, good point from both of you, is that you don't have to have a super quarterback to win a Super Bowl ring. Mark Rippon did not win it for the Washington Redskins. We know that. And the Ravens' first title was not due to a quarterback either. So defense does come through. But a very good discussion on Plunkett. And if you're in Foxborough, Massachusetts or Oakland, California, they will make a very big case for him.
I didn't even get into Ray Guy yet. No punters in the NFL Hall of Fame. He changed the game back in the 70s. Ball position, hang time became a big thing with Raymond Guy. So I'm probably one of the few people. I had a Ray Guy poster in my bedroom growing up in Northern California way back in the 70s.
I'm in on specialty guys getting into the Hall of Fame. They're a member of your team. They're a significant member of your team. If they weren't, you wouldn't have a punter. You'd figure out a different way to do it. But it's the same thing with like closers to me in baseball. Don't tell me that a closer is not deserving of being in the Hall of Fame because he throws one inning every 3 days or whatever it is. I don't care. Mariano Rivera is as big a reason for the Yankees' success and all of their World Series titles in his career as anyone else on that team was. So if you're going to let them play the game, you're going to pay them to play the game, they should be eligible for the Hall of Fame. Field goal kickers, punters, I don't care what you do. If you're on the field, you're playing football, you're playing your sport, you deserve to be eligible for the Hall of Fame and get in.
It took Ray Guy forever, and it was a crime that he didn't get in the Hall of Fame much earlier. It really was. Because ask any NFL head coach, assistant coach, when you see a punt that goes out at the 4, okay, that's field position. That is a victory. That's a major factor in burying a team deep in their zone late in a game. And Ray Guy was the best, and he should have gone in a lot earlier. And actually, to your point about kickers, Jan Stenerud took him forever. With great Kansas City teams, they never get the credit that when they're kicking a 58-yard field goal in Green Bay in January through the snow, the wind, to win a playoff game, that to me is a Hall of Famer. They don't get the credit they deserve.
They're the most important guy on the field in so many situations. Like, how many times in this NFL season will a kicker line up to kick a game-winning field goal as time expires or a game-winning field goal in overtime? How many times will that happen? It'll happen more than 20, probably.
Every week?
Yeah, I mean, and yet most times they're the least important person on the field until they're the most important person on the field.
Yeah, one of the greatest heartaches I have in my sports history for me was the night Woodson sacked Tom Brady and caused that fumble in Foxborough that whatever. But it still took to me the greatest kick in the history of football when Vinatieri buried that 44-yarder, 45-yarder. I kind of blocked out how long it was, but in the snow, the stakes couldn't have been higher. He'll get in the Hall. And actually, you talk about special teamers immediately. Steve Tasker and Bill Bates are two guys that jump into mind for me that they can change games when you have gunners like that, especially Tasker in Buffalo and what he did.
Yeah, and I also think, too, like, if you're ever the first or, like, one of the first at your position to change the game in terms of, like, what Tasker did, if you're ever the first at any position in any sport, I think, you know what, I don't care if they're numbered. Like, if the guy didn't score 87 touchdowns. Well, of course he's not going to, because it's just not going to happen in a kickoff situation or scenario or punt situation scenario. But if you change the game at your position, there needs to be real thought about putting them in, if for no other reason than that.
Yeah, and that's why you go back to Ray Guy, and it took him way too long to get in. Now, if you look at punter stats now, they got Guy beat. They've eclipsed his numbers, but he did change the game. He should not have had to wait until 2014 to go. And you're right, and that's what I mean about the Hall of Fame, right? It's that's what the word is.
And kickers and punters, and those of us that have worked with college or high school teams, and you two know from working in the media, is that they're separate. They have their little pocket because they don't have a lot in common with that 6'10", 390-pound right guard, okay? But the fact of the matter is that guy relies on him and vice versa. But it's unfortunate that they are expected to be perfect. A kicker cannot be perfect. Okay, I don't care if you miss inside a dome or out, and then on Monday you folks see the transactions and so is waived. I don't see the right guard waived when he gave up 6 sacks.
Yeah, the NFL is tough, especially with like these poor guys. You sign a contract, we're just gonna let you go. Like the non-guaranteed stuff is hard. I'm curious as to where you guys stand. So there was a bunch of guys who didn't make it in this year, but because you have guys like, listen, Peyton Manning, first ballot guy, obviously. You have guys who were shoo-ins, Calvin Johnson, Charles Woodson. Those guys all deserve to be in. I'm curious where you stand on guys like a Tony Baselli. Listen, I think he's in. Nope, it may be as early as next year, but guys who, like, generally we hold it against them when they have short careers, when injuries cut their careers short. But I always think, like, if you extrapolated someone's career like a Tony Baselli, and I think he's in again, regardless of extrapolating or not, if you extrapolate their career, what would they have done had they not had some devastating injury? A lot of these guys would be Hall of Famers.
Bo Jackson. Right? I mean, he was the man and the greatest Tecmo Bowl player in the history of video games. So I kind of always wondered with him. Gail Sayers was an exception to what you're saying, actually. His career got cut short, but he was so good. He's in. Yeah, Tony Baselli will go in. I think the weird part, the different part about some of these sports is the NFL, it seems to be common that you're going to have to wait unless you're Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, for example. In baseball, if you're not a first ballot Hall of Famer, somehow that's a stain on your career. It's kind of different, the different markers that go for each of the sports in the different halls.
There's one guy, I think he's going to get in next year, and I think it was just the names this year, but Jaron Allen, okay, seriously. 5 Pro Bowls, 4-time first-team All-Pro, led the leagues in sacks not once but twice. Nobody else has done that since they've kept sacks, okay? And throughout his career, I just thought he had a phenomenal career. He was always on the camera, always getting something done. He had 136 sacks, 32 forced fumbles, over 600 tackles. And he also holds the record for most games in a row with a sack at 11. I mean, I'm not sure what more you have to do. I've always been a fan. I've been a fan of Jaron Allen, and I really hope that he gets in next year. And he holds a lot of records with the Vikings. And anybody who holds a lot of records with the Minnesota Vikings, to me, needs to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, hey, moving along here on m&m Across the Board. Once again, follow us on Twitter at m&m&ATB1. Apple, Spotify, and YouTube is where we can be found. Feel free to leave a comment. We'll certainly address those as we can. Eric, Chicago Cubs hat of the week. Very timely. We're coming off of the most insane trade deadline day in the history of Major League Baseball. I enjoyed it. Kept refreshing the page on the internet as often as I could. What's on your mind?
Well, we'll talk about the Cubbies later on, but I'm going to give you 3 teams outside of LA and New York that won the trading deadline because we know what happened with those teams. So let's start with number 3, and let's go to the other side of Chicago. I won't sing Chicago, Chicago, but I'd love to, about the White Sox, okay? Jimenez is back. Robert is coming back. It's like picking up 2-star outfielders at the deadline, but getting Kimbrel to join Hendricks for an 8th, 9th inning closer, I think it's tough when you look at Craig Kimbrel, seen him over the years struggle in the 8th inning, but I think the two of them right off the bat were teasing each other. We haven't seen any double monster closer on one team since Boston got Lee Smith from the Cubs to add Jeff Reardon, and I remember how valuable that was. So they can leave the rest of the meh teams in the AL Central. You'd have to agree. It's really not a good division this year, and they've just buried them. So the White Sox are 3, though. Number 2, let's go get a brat for lunch, you guys. We're going to Milwaukee for the Brewers, okay? Similar to the White Sox, they're in a division again with some meh teams, and they're taking advantage of it. I mean, when was the last time we saw a lousy Cardinals team? The Reds are the Reds. They'll tease us and disappear. And the Cubs, of course, have been cleaned out, and Major League Baseball doesn't exist in Pittsburgh. So I think Daniel Norris is a good pickup. Willie Adames that they got from Tampa Bay has just been awesome. And Eduardo Escobar also for their infields got over 20 homers and getting out of Arizona's heat and also that stench of a 33-72 record. Nice job, Brewers. And number 1, lastly, the Braves. Seriously, they could have packed it in, you guys. They had many excuses. Guna gone, Ozuna sidelined, Soroka couldn't pitch, and yet they see an opening in that division. Now, credit to the Mets for staying on top of that division with all of those injuries. But let's be honest, it's up for grabs. Atlanta gets Duvall, Rosario, Soler for the outfield. Tremendous talents, all at the deadline. Duvall has over 20 homers. Rosario was in the top 20 in MVP voting in Minnesota. And we remember just a few years ago that Jorge Soler blasted nearly 50 homers. And then you got Richard Rodriguez, who was a closer. Great arm. So I want to congrats to the fans of the Pale Hose. I shouldn't say that with that hat on, but congrats to the White Sox. Congrats to the Brew Crew and all those Atlanta Braves for great deadline deals. So now I'm going to throw the pitch to you two. What teams would you say blew the deadline? Didn't do that well.
Want to go first? What do you got?
Ashley.
Well, I was going to start with a team or two that you didn't mention, and Shawnee will love this. I think one of the ones that kind of flew under the radar was your A's. Shawnee, I think Yan Gomes is one of the most underrated acquisitions at the trade deadline. Love that guy. Love what he does. He's already got a home run for them. I think that they've made themselves better. And I think, again, they're right in the mix. That's a sneaky team. I love what the Blue Jays did. The Blue Jays knew, listen, we've got a division of the Rays, the Yankees, the Red Sox. We have to go do something. They went out and got, aside from Max Scherzer, the best available starting pitcher in Jose Berrios. And he showed last night, he threw 6 shutout innings already in his first start, 7 strikeouts. Like, that dude is what they need. And we know they're loaded offensively. They have so much young talent. I think everybody did something in that division that made them better. We'll get to the Yankees, I think, in a little bit. Go ahead, Shawnee. What do you got?
Hey, has anybody woken up Hein Bloom out in Boston? His only move,
Schwarber,
a guy on the injured list who's not played first base, and it just, when you know your neighbors are improving, you got to move. And I'll go on record right now, they're done. They're dead. Red Sox are dead. DED dead. Fourth place.
Wow.
Fourth place. Tampa somehow continues to win games. I still can't figure out how they do it. They get rid of all their veteran pitchers. I think what the Yankees did, and I'm no Yankee fan, I think what the Yankees did have reinvigorated that team. Rizzo's a great bat in that lineup, a great presence, a great leader example for a team that looked lifeless a week ago. Gallo's going to hit. He's going to strike out, but he's going to hit. I think the Yankees come back and win that division. I'm feeling a little 1978 this morning when I woke up. You know, is it going to be Aaron effing Judge?
That's bold.
In the hub in a few years. Is it going to be Roofnet effing Odor? I don't know who it's going to be. Tyler effing Wade. I don't know. But I have a feeling the Yankees are going to get it together enough to win. I don't think Tampa's going to sustain itself with the way they've done, and they just traded their closer. I just can't figure it out. We're in the dog days of August now. You separate the contenders from the pretenders. I think the Yankees are going to pick up on the heels of a great weekend, and they're going to win the East.
Well, I agree about the Yankees clubhouse has just exploded because they see the commitment from Brian Cashman. Okay. It's
about
really
time.
did a hell of a job, and exactly about time. But the Boston clubhouse deflated. Okay, Anthony Rizzo should have gone to Boston. He came up through the system. They had to deal him to get Aaron the first baseman they got from the Padres years ago. They had to deal these kids early on. The problem is they didn't get Rizzo, and now at a position that is just dreadful, they're putting a guy who last played first base in the Cape Cod League, which means I probably saw him one summer in July. Okay. But my point there is that it did deflate the clubhouse because Schwarber is not going to be in the field while all the other guys are hitting home runs. And as for Barrios, a tremendous trade, no question, Ashley. They had used 31 pitchers, which is a crime with that offense. So now they've used at least 32 pitchers, but a tremendous pickup. I think that one really could be the one that really makes Toronto a contender for the card.
Yeah, listen, I get that Red Sox fans are going to be upset and that Schwarber's probably not going to play the field like they want him to. But, like, listen, a healthy Kyle Schwarber with his swing, that dude can rake. So, like, if that guy can get right, it's just another bat to a lineup that everyone in that lineup can hit. It's just another bat that you can add to it. I don't hate the Schwarber signing as much as other people do, I think. I think they just needed to do more, which they didn't do. But that division, Shawnee, I would be shocked if the Yankees come back to win that division. I think they've got an outside chance to get in. I don't see them winning that division.
I see a different Yankee team here. I think that's how much a guy like Rizzo can bring you. And Gallo he didn't do much in his first couple games. But I think Rizzo, I just have a feeling that you're going to see a different Yankee team this going forward. And once things happen and you pick up some momentum, some crazy things can happen. We talked about pressure earlier in the show. Now the pressure kind of switches once you get it. The Yankees, the one thing they have not done this year is really put together a consistent streak. They had a couple early in the year when they were playing some of the dregs of the league. But I think now they get into their division, they get some big wins. I think they can build off that. And Toronto, the one thing about Toronto, I'm happy for them. They're home now for the first time all year.
Yep.
They're finally back in Toronto, and maybe they can feed off that a little bit, and that can help them with a little momentum.
Listen, this better work for Toronto because they sold off their whole farm system, apparently.
I think you two would nod in agreement on this. I think the biggest disgrace is the Colorado Rockies. How in the world do you not deal Story?
But are you surprised?
Not get rid of them for prospects. All you get, there's no waivers now in August. All you're going to get is that draft compensation. And I saw the picture of Trevor Story in the dugout, and he was looking down angry, okay, Friday night, angry that he was not moved. I think that was a terrible thing for that organization. They didn't have the right to say, we want a top 5. Get a prospect. Get somebody, okay? But what they did is now they've kept him there, and they can't do anything with him, and they're going to lose him for virtually nothing. And that sets back the organization now and in the future, right?
Yeah, I think even more so than teams like the Rangers, the Nationals, the Cubs, who we saw just full-on fire sale it. Like, we saw them tear it all down and get rid of big contracts to get hauls of prospects. At least you are setting yourself up. You are setting the organization up for the future. And in the Cubs case, I think a quicker turnaround maybe than people think. But you've now set yourselves up for the future versus like Colorado, where you're just stagnant and you still have a superstar and you're going to hold on to him and just let him rot there.
Yeah, like Colorado, John Gray, everybody thought would get traded. Apparently there's a feeling that he wants to stay there and they want him and they're going to work something out. And it's never a bad idea to take your best pitcher, second best pitcher in this case, and lock him up. But Trevor Story's leaving to get nothing. That's just insane. And there would have been a market for Trevor Story. He can hit. You get a shortstop with that kind of speed and power combination. They don't grow on trees. I think the Rockies were definitely asleep at the switch, no question.
What do we think about, has anyone's mind changed about what the Dodgers have done, how it affects the Padres, if Chris Bryant is enough to keep the Giants atop that division? What do you guys think about that division?
Well, right now, it's the status of Fernando Tatis.
Yeah.
His injury. I mean, this could be devastating for that ball club. I mean, San Diego went out, Frazier, and they made some moves. I mean, it's pretty wild to see 3 incredible teams out west. But I think more devastating than what the Dodgers just got is the status of Fernando Tatis. If he is hurt, it could be lights out. Doesn't mean they won't get the card, because I don't think it comes from the NL East, and I don't see it in the Central. So it's almost like the second and third place teams in the West are going to get in anyway. But that to me is something we really have to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I think that injury means more almost. The Dodgers are going to get there. Kershaw's going to get healthy. Scherzer, Trey Turner was probably the best player to me to go somewhere, given his age and what he can do for you with hitting and stealing bases. I'm not sure what that does to Corey Seager there, unless somebody moves over to second base.
Yeah.
But that team's going to be stacked. I'll tell you, the team, even Chris Bryant was a great get for the Giants. Good for them.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep up with the Joneses a little bit. They just keep winning games, and they to me may become the story of August if they can hold on, and if they can win that division, especially then it puts the Dodgers and the Padres in the wild card game against each other, and you get a knockout. But the Tatis thing is just, it's a crusher for San Diego. I still think they make the playoffs. They're good enough, they're deep enough, but you take out one of the top 2 or 3 talents in the game, that's tough.
Yeah, and I think, listen, everyone knew Scherzer was going. It was very clear he was the top kind of name out there, the biggest name to get traded before the deadline. But I was stunned when I saw that deal included Trey Turner.
Yeah.
Like I mean, he's one of the best, like right now for his age and what he can do. I want that guy on my team. I'll take him over a lot of other people. So I was shocked. First of all, first reports on Twitter, it was Scherzer to the Padres. And so I'm like, oh, Scherzer to the Padres, man, they're really doing work. And then like 2 hours later, it was somehow Scherzer to the Dodgers. Oh, and by the way, Trey Turner is part of that deal. Holy cow, way to turn that thing on its head.
He and Soto should be the foundation, Ashley, of that franchise. These teams that get carried away from one bad year, like the Twins, who'd won the division a few times in recent years. You can tear it down a bit, but you don't have to burn it down. You still have next season that you could turn things around. So I agree. I was shocked at Turner being included in that trade because he and Soto are the 2 franchise cornerstones for Washington.
It's so funny. That night, the Cubs were playing the Nationals, and I saw people tweeting like, oh my God, you should let people in for free to see this game. How bad could it be? And then more and more names kept going, and it was like, you should pay people to go to this game because it's not going to be anyone they know.
You could have just said Kyle Hendricks picks Juan Soto all night, and that's it. And however they do 27 up and down and see how they go. I think even still for Cubs fans and Nationals fans, it's got to be a brutal couple days. I'd rather that than do what Colorado didn't do what Pittsburgh just is, and sometimes you got to rip it down and start over, and it's a painful process. And one team that's catching my eye big time right now is the team that has done that, the Detroit Tigers. They're playing great baseball. AJ Hinch is a good manager. Didn't need garbage cans, didn't need wires. He's showing that up in Detroit. He's got a good group of young guys, got a couple graybeards there like Miggy Cabrera, but they got all of a sudden some young pitching there, and they're kind of building it. And they may become the next model for the next couple of years. KC would have been in that a couple of months ago, but they've really struggled with injuries. But you look at the Tigers, a team that was bad. They were bad for a few years, and now they're starting to get better and knock on the door. And hopefully for the Cubs and Nationals fans, they can get back in just a few years' time.
And they went after, the Tigers top to bottom in the draft, pitching. That's, they're going after it. They've got kind of a model. And I think, like you said, they've done a good job so far. And I think if they stick with it, they're going to be a team that we're talking about again, finally.
Dave Dombrowski, when he's with the Tigers, Dave Dombrowski will destroy your farm system to get you the title. And Detroit still paying for it. Yep. I thought he'd do a lot more for the Phillies right now with that win now attitude too. But Boston had to recover a bit. And so I think Detroit fans would take that trade to get to the series, that is.
Sure, I think people are quickly realizing, though, like there are so many fan bases, maybe not the Yankees who would say tear it all down just to win once, because that's not how, things go. But most other fan bases, I think, in this country would say, if you guarantee me a World Series title, then tear it all down. I don't care. You know what I mean? If we can win once, then we're fine for the next 20 to 30 years to 50 years, and it's all good. We got our one title a lifetime. There are certain franchises that's just not acceptable for.
Oh, I would love it. The Bruins finally won me a cup in 2011. It had been a long time. I'll take it. You ask fans, would you trade one World Series for 10 or 20 years of purgatory? I'll take that experience because it can't be taken away from you, and you'll always have that memory. So, yeah. To win one, even one. like that great Cubs team that we've seen the last few years. I thought they were going to have a run of more than one title. But you ask any of those diehard Cub fans that suffered all those years, they'll hold on to 2016 forever. All right. So now we move along here on m&m&m ATB. Twitter handle at m&m&m-ATB1, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and now we are time for our Across the Board segment to close our show. Ashley,
I'm ready.
What's on your board this week?
What's on my mind? Here we go. Oh, that's U.S. women's national team. We're talking soccer now. We're switching gears. I'm staying with the Olympics. Spoiler alert. If you don't want to hear it, close your ears, mute your mics, whatever you got to do. U.S. women's national team lost today in the semifinals to Canada, 1-0. And I think the biggest thing that I take away from this is they weren't super enjoyable for me to watch this year in the Olympics, which was kind of disappointing and very out of the norm for that team that's generally like lively. And the one thing I noticed, though, was like a lot of times that team was best when Carly Lloyd and Megan Rapinoe were on the field. They energized that group. And that's a problem. When you've got your 38, 39, 40-year-olds are at times your best players and your most energetic and lively players, that's a problem. But the fact that we think that a semifinal exit in the Olympics is disappointing is fantastic. It means that this program and this team is where it needs to be, where we want it to be, that the expectations, like gymnastics, are so high that we're disappointed when they lose. I think, unlike the men's team, who hasn't been relevant in a long time, who hasn't been to the Olympics in the last 3 Olympic Games, I think that this team has the ability to use something like this and to get better and to add fire, unlike the men's team. I think they'll use it. I think they'll get better. Unfortunately for Carly Lloyd and Megan Rapinoe, my guess is that they are not back in 3 years. And I think I would be pretty safe in saying that. But at the same time, I hope that you now bring in a youth movement and you can get these young women who have seen this and seen the disappointment and now want to be a part of something really special, because that team is really special. Everything about it is special, but they couldn't score goals in the Olympics. They weren't the same fun, inspired team that they have been in the past. And I hope we get back to that, because that team's one of the best things that this country has going.
Hey, Ashley, real quick, I just got to write this down. The U.S. has a men's national team? Okay, hold on.
Isn't that funny?
Who knew? Education to go with sports here.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't even qualify. Yeah, Ashley, I agree. I always think of Mia Hamm and Randy Chaston and all of those players, and it's amazing and it's fantastic that it is I don't mean it's good that it's a letdown, but the fact that the expectations are so high tells you what they built and what they've done. And if you look at high schools now, and if you look at colleges and you see a lot more young women playing soccer, that is all you need to know. So
and you see jerseys.
That's right.
You see jerseys, which you've never seen before. You know, before Mia Hamm, and that they were the trendsetters. But before Mia Hamm, you never saw soccer jerseys. Now you see Alex Morgan jerseys everywhere. You see Rapinoe, you see Carly Lloyd, you see Mewis, you see all those ladies, and they're well represented. And I think that's perfect for where this team is headed. This is just a roadblock.
And don't say, and Sean, I like your thought on this too, is I don't like people that say, oh, soccer won't catch on in the U.S. Enough of that, okay?
It's
the White House when the women's soccer team was there, Cup Olympics. The women's soccer team has done a lot for women's sports and in this country for the sport of soccer. It's not always about men. So anybody that says, oh, the NASL and soccer isn't catching on in this country, go ask the young ladies that are playing and ask the members of this team about what has happened to soccer in this country because of females and not males.
God bless you, Eric McDowell.
It has caught on. Real quick before we move on, it has caught on, but it's a niche sport, just like hockey is. You know, I'm a big hockey fan. People are like, well, I don't care. Well, good for you. You don't have to. I love it. So here's what's on my mind this week. The term the big three. It has been done. We'll come up with something different. The latest Russell Westbrook kind of forcing his way to Los Angeles to go play with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and then whoever else they decide to put on the team. I think my problem with it this time is the report that came out that they all had a meeting just a few weeks back to try and orchestrate it. Look, that's the system. Okay, that's the system. I don't begrudge anybody. Somebody signs as a free agent. When LeBron went to Miami with Wade and Bosh, I didn't like it. It gave me somebody to root against for a few years. I just didn't like the way it was choreographed. But that's the sport. The players drive the NBA probably more so than any other sport. That goes back to David Stern back in the early 90s. Instead of the Lakers versus the Celtics, it was Ewing and the Knicks against Jordan and the Bulls. They made it a star-driven league. This is the consequence. Okay. It doesn't mean I have to like it. So I'm tired of the word the big three. So here's what's on my board this week. For the new Lakers, GOAT number 2, because LeBron's not the GOAT. He's the GOAT to anybody under 25 that never saw Jordan play. The nomad Westbrook going to another team 4 and 4 years. And then the guy who quit in New Orleans, who stopped playing, stopped going, and made them trade him to conveniently LA. I don't like that this is the game. I don't like that this is the system, but you know what? That's what it is, and it's allowed. So I'll handle it. But again, it gives me somebody to root against next year. And trust me, I like LeBron James. I like what he did in Cleveland. Didn't like his 4 years in Miami. I love that he went back home, won a title, and going to LA. Good for you. I mean, the NBA, the history is just filled with a lot of your top tier players going to LA. It's similar to baseball players who go play a year in Yankee Stadium or two in the pinstripes. And I do think LeBron, one of the reasons he went to LA, it gives him a bigger voice beyond sports. And I think what you're going to see him do after his career is going to be much larger than what he does in the NBA. And if being LA helps him do that, that's fine, depending on your feelings on his message. But I like to see a guy get involved and want to make a difference, especially if it's in the Black community.
Yeah, listen, I think if it's not Lakers Nets in some capacity next year, holy cow, what a letdown. I mean, barring significant injuries to both sides, again, if it's not Lakers Nets, if we don't see that at some point, that would be pretty disappointing. But this is where this tells you the state of the NBA. Sean, you said it, like LeBron and Anthony Davis knew they needed another piece because they're not good enough on their own. And I don't know that I believe they're not good enough on their own to beat Brooklyn's big three with Harden, Kyrie, and KD. I don't know that I believe that. A healthy LeBron James and AD, I think it would be a lot of fun. But now I think you've leveled the playing field. So now you're going to go out there because they want to show, okay, well, who's the best big three now? Because that just means who's the best team. And let's be honest, I love Giannis. I love what he did this year. But all things being equal, if everyone is at top health on the Lakers and on the Nets, I don't think Milwaukee wins a title.
Yeah, you're right. No Kyrie for the Nets was a killer for them. I mean, just for me, I enjoyed this year's playoff run. It was different teams. The league is better off with a healthy LA, Boston, New York, Chicago. They're better off with that. There's no question there. So this will help out the league. But for me, I like seeing some of the new teams. You know, you really got an idea of who Chris Middleton is this year and helping the Bucks run to that championship. And Jrue Holiday with a big defensive stop to close out Game 6. And I kind of like to see some of the younger guys get some publicity and let people know who they are.
You know, when you make it a big three, folks, that third sometimes has a little baggage. Okay, Westbrook's been all over the place. There's baggage there. I know, no question that Kyrie Irving had baggage. We saw the ugly dumpster fire that he left in Cleveland, and he left a stain in Boston too. And then we've seen his antics in Brooklyn. So, I mean, you can get the big three, but if you're getting a third guy that's got baggage, the question will be, what will happen in that locker room? And secondly, there is only one basketball on the court. So somebody's got to sacrifice. And when you get the big three, you're going to get very limited bench parts involved. So the other thing with LeBron is obviously he was all Ohio. I get that. But the fact is he wants to do TV production. He's in the new Space Jam remake, which we're excited to see. And I think Bugs Bunny's back in it as well. Hopefully he gets an Oscar this time. But LeBron is there for his future, as you said, for production, for LA and the ESPYs and all that stuff. So can't fault him for that. But big three sometimes is big two, and then okay, we'll take you two.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Kawhi in LA and Chris Paul in Phoenix too. They both opted out of their player options. They're not going anywhere. But smart players now know, okay, Chris Paul was set to make $40+ million next year.
$44.5 million.
He's good. But if you want to build a team around you, you need money to spend, and it can't all go to one player. He understands that. Kawhi Leonard, same thing, mid-30s, I think he's going to make next year. I think you'll see these guys taking less money to try to draw. I'm not sure who else is out there to bring to a team that you could create now. I don't know if you can make a big three. Chris Paul, I don't think, is part of a big three. If you're going to have Devin Booker and Ayton and Chris Paul, that was your big three. You have to add another piece to make a bigger big three, which pushes somebody out of it. But you know what I mean? They're both trying to, I think, make their teams better by giving them room to bring someone else in.
All right. Eric, what's on your board this week, buddy?
Well, this hat is not for Colony High School, so I guess people recognize what it's for, and plus it's not their colors. It has to be the Cubbies. The Cubbies. Now, Boston fans had a long drought from 1918 to 2004 for world title, and in fact, interestingly enough, segue, the 18 Red Sox defeated the Cubs. They were used to that. 1908 was the last Cubs title until 2016, when a young, exciting team finally broke the curse of the GOAT, and the 84 collapse and error, the loss to the Padres and Steve Bartman. Sorry, I can feel my cap getting really hot right now. So 2016 was magical. Now, I had an intern, you guys, that drove out to Chicago just to get to the parade and drove back. And he cried when he left, and he cried when he came back. Caps and cans of Old Style were left at grave sites. The unthinkable really happened. And it happened. Why? Well, partly, big reason why, the young stars, Eric, like Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, Javier Baez. Now, here's what happened since. They got into these sneaky little wild card games, backdoor and gone. They had high expectations, low results. They made deals designed for October that really lit up the farm system, but then they didn't have a run in October. Now, Al Capone had dynasties in Chicago. The dynasty thoughts for the Cubs turned out to be a don't-dasty, if there is such a word. Now, contract extensions were not going to happen. Kyle Schwarber knows that. He got out of town the year before. But really, this year, the 11-game losing streak that forced Hoyer to pull the plug on July 6th, which, by the way, is my birthday, and it's a good thing I'm not a Cubs fan. It would have been a lousy one. Sure, they got 12 prospects, 9 of whom were ranked in the top 30 in other organizations, but still, I thought Hoover was the headliner when it comes to cleaning house. Plus, how tough is it for the Cubs to see the White Sox going so well? The Kimbrel trade is not unique between these teams. The Cubs had traded the beloved Ron Santo to the White Sox, and in '92, we remember a young outfielder named Sammy Sosa went to the Cubs. That didn't make White Sox Pale Hose fans happy later on. And recently, Eloy Jimenez, people will forget, once was a Cubs prospect. So, wrapping up, Cubs fans, think good thoughts. Think about Harry Carey's mic outside the booth as you would sing along in the 7th. Hey! Think about that smile of Ernie Banks wishing we could play two 9-inning games, that is. And don't watch Bryant as a Giant or Rizzo as a Yankee or others in strange duds. Think about 2016. That will never be dealt away from your heart.
And they've got Nick Madrigal. Not so bad. That's
Could
not so
be worse.
bad. It'll get better.
Could be worse.
Listen, they had lost how many games in a row with all the guys we just mentioned. So I get it. It's almost befuddling how you can lose with a team like that because you've seen what all 3 of those guys have done with their brand new. I mean, Rizzo has driven in a run in his first 3 games with the Yankees. Javier Baez homered in his first game with the Mets. Chris Bryant homered in his first game with the Giants. It's like, wait, how did that team lose? Oh, okay. So I get it, but it's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully it won't be such a long wait for the Cubs fans next time around.
All right. That do it for week 2, boys?
I think it does it.
Week 2, M&M&M across the board. We made it 2 weeks in. We'll be back next week. You can follow us on Twitter at MMMATB1. You can also watch us, listen to us on the podcast, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. We didn't say any curse words this week, Sean Martin, so you won't be censored, no penalty box, and our YouTube will be clean Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
All right. Take
Thank
care.
you.